First of all, thank you for the invitation to participate in this seminar. It was a pleasure to listen to Rachel again and to meet Christian Cox. Well, I prepared a presentation to talk about our recent experience. I mean, we visited the STEP program at Stanford, and we sort of made a balance from it, and so this is what I'm going to talk about. So how can STEP help us or give us ideas about our own experience in Brazil? So it also made us think about our own courses and our own reality. So thinking about excellence in teacher education is the name of this talk. A photo of a public school in contrast with a private school. So you can see how Brazil is a nation of inequality, and the good schools at the elementary level and at the early childhood education level are the private schools, even though there are private schools that are not good either. So education in Brazil has been undergoing a democratization, a process of making it more accessible to more people, which has been accompanied by an adherence to evaluations and elaborations of public policies to deal with the growing number of children in schools. And the big changes then include that education has now twice the budget it had 20 years ago, although it is still about a fourth of what other countries, more developed countries, allocate to their children in schools. If we think about 25 years ago, children only had access to school after age 7. 20% of children ages 10 through 14 were illiterate. And nowadays, we have 81% of preschool-age children in school, only 2.4% of 7 to 14-year-old children out of school, and only 2.5% of 10 to 14 are illiterate. So we drastically inverted the situation in the past 20 years, which is a very positive outcome from recent governments, but it did create a further demand, a larger demand on funding, on teacher education programs, and we're still catching up, as I see it. So we still have the younger ones, 0 to 3-year-old children, don't have access to nursery schools. They are still out. Only 3% of teacher education programs in the country are considered excellent, and the one I work at is one of them. So that's the one I'll be focusing on today. Well, the teacher education programs in Brazil, from a recent study done in 2010, it was found that the distribution of the curricula in all these teacher education programs is a little bit unbalanced and tipping towards more theoretical kind of teaching rather than practical or specialized in the area. So we see that 26% of the courses are theoretical, 15% are about educational systems, which are like management, organization, etc. 29% specialized knowledge, so methodologies, practice, technology, curriculum, the ones that we really should be concerned about, more concerned about. Knowledge relative to different groups such as early childhood or elementary school, only 11% of courses are concerned with that, and research 7%. So too much of the courses is dedicated to theoretical knowledge, and only 29% is really about what teachers should be doing. Similar results can be seen at in the curriculum at the teacher education program that I am coordinating at the time. So the distribution of courses in our program shows that we have 360 hours of internship or of practice, of which 240 hours are actually in school, and the other hours are in the classroom with supervision. And if we factor that in, all the hours they spend at the university in the teacher education program, that's only 7%. So when Rachel says, you know, this is a one-year program with intense practice, and we do the math, I forget the number now, but I think the teachers in the STEP program are getting about 1,000 hours of practice, while we're giving our students in a four-year course 360 hours or 240 in class. So it's really much less and very little. There are 2,550 hours in class education courses and a total of 3,300 hours. So it is an undergraduate program in Brazil, and it's a four-year program, and after that they are eligible to go into the classroom and teach at the early childhood level and at the elementary school level, as well as in teacher education programs that are at the, we still have several teacher education programs that are at the high school level. So they're also able to teach there. The courses, just to give you an idea of how they're distributed in our teacher education program, you can see that psychology of education, history, philosophy, anthropology, sociology take up a large chunk of hours. Then you have didactics, methodologies, and practice. Mind you that methodologies are not actually practiced, they're more hypothetical. And then all the others. So if we look at that table, we see that 29% of our course is dedicated to theoretical foundations, much like what we found with the Gotti 2010 study. 35% is dedicated to specialized knowledge, which is a little bit better than what Gotti found overall in Brazil. 15% is dedicated to knowledge about educational systems, and 21% is dedicated to knowledge relative to different groups. So it is better distributed, but I still see that specialized knowledge is still quite low. So what are concerns that we have that are in common with what Rachel presented and what I saw when I went to Stanford recently? Our concern, big concern, is the match and the interaction between theory and practice. So a number of our professors have experience in the classroom, but others do not benefit from having that experience. Some of our professors are philosophers or just never taught at the classroom, you know, at the basic school level, only university level. So they tend to focus more in theory and than in practice. We do have a partnership with schools for internships. So we have partnerships with 11 public schools in the neighborhood and 22 private schools in the surrounding area. But these partnerships are used primarily for internships. They're not used by the other courses. So, besides that, schools are not selected like in the STEP program. You know, they don't go in to observe and see, you know, who could be a collaborating teacher. We just use the schools that are available around our university. The schools, well, we do have, which has been more intensified lately with my being as head of the program, is that schools do call us and they do seek our students to be assistant teachers. And so they go for a paid internship, and this paid internship does include, usually in private schools, I mean, basically in private schools. So they are paid a stipend, which is low but decent for a student, undergraduate student. and they have the benefit of supervision and of participating in meetings. So it's kind of an immersion in school, and it's usually 1 or 2 years, depending on how long the student wants to stay, and it's after classes. So many students do get to have more practice than what our course provides for. Now, another drawback in our case is that students are increasingly less interested in teaching. So they come into undergraduate a course, which is a teacher's ed course, and they don't necessarily want to be here. The career is looked down upon because of the very low salary. It's nearly borderline humiliating. I mean, if you're a good nanny, you make more money than if you're a teacher in Brazil. So nobody wants to be a teacher, and who wants to be a teacher is kind of embarrassed about it. So students come in mostly because they want a degree, and so some will go on to teaching because they develop the love for it. Some already have the love for it, and they're here for that. And others want to pursue a different career. So they want to work in NGOs or businesses, or with media, or in human resources, so anything other than teaching. And we hear that in the classroom. They will say, can you please stop talking about schools? You know, as if we were here to do something other than that. And many of them don't want to work with children, which is probably something very common in undergraduate students who, you know, just came out of adolescence. So I think an advantage of STEP and the system in the U.S. and maybe in other places is that it is a graduate course, so that it is a choice. Whereas here, you have many people going into this profession without really choosing it. But that is something I cannot change, and I'm sure it's not going to be changed anytime soon. But we do have 4 years, and I think that's positive because it's a real immersion. You know, it's 3,300 hours of preparing this person to be a teacher. So they come out with a very good theoretical foundation. They come out with very critical thinking, you know, all the kind of stuff that you get out of undergraduate work. So one other thing I'd like to discuss a little is how Brazil is a different context, and so there are some hurdles here that different from the hurdles in the U.S. Brazilian education benefits from a strong influence of constructive methods in literacy, as well as Paulo Freire's ideas. So we do have a very strong critical knowledge base and methodologies for working with children, but we just need to spread the word better. So there are too many teacher education programs that are really poor in terms of quality. Our education is at the undergraduate level, not the graduate level. I already discussed that. Students are mostly from lower, middle to low socioeconomic class, given that it's not an option usually, so they just want a degree, and so it's not a sought-after course. So people who are, you know, poor students or didn't have opportunity to go to a good school, they will try for teacher's education because the odds that they will get in are greater than if they try Portuguese or science or medicine or anything like that. So given that our students are mostly from lower middle class and low class socioeconomic class, we do have an extra problem, which is, you know, we'd love for them to have more practice, but in actual fact, they can't be full-time students like they are at STEP. They have to be here in the morning, and in the afternoon they go off to an internship or a job, and so their dedication and their university life is very restricted. So I see an opportunity for them to get more practice in these paid internships for now. And there is also some resistance. I mean, when we discussed this issue of theory and practice, but I do see some rejection, like Rachel talked about and Christian talked about, thinking of methodology as something mechanical and boxed and brainless. And when you talk about more practice, that's looked down upon as, a behavioristic or formulaic kind of approach, which it shouldn't be. And I saw that at STEP it is not. It's more reflexive and critical. So I think that kind of thinking is very useful. Wait, I'm not being able to pass the slides. Just a second. Okay, so what happened? Okay, this is my last slide. So some of the ideas we get from STEP are, which I haven't commented yet, but class management is something that we saw, students having a course on class management, and that also would be very looked with a lot of prejudice from scholars here, because that sounds like behavior management and sounds like behaviorism, but when you think about it, it is very useful and very important, to create an environment of learning. So that was an eye-opener. Importance of lesson plans, we don't do that enough either, and of evaluation, self-evaluation, evaluation of how the lesson went, and so on. Close and frequent supervision at multiple levels. So we saw the clinical associates who do supervision. We saw doctoral students being tutors. I mean, those are realities that, or alternatives that could be feasible here, which would account for the problem I talked about with many of our professors not having that kind of school experience, so not being able to supervise that. Integration and alignment among different levels of knowledge and expertise, so that was interesting. Student teachers, CTs, which are the collaborating teachers, supervisors, clinical associates, and professors, whereas in our programs we usually just have professors and students. So to think about theory and practice as being more intertwined into the other courses, not just methodology and practice, but other courses as well. The didactic use of videotaping was another, eye-opener, because it is something feasible, and we never thought about doing that. So that the teachers, the professors here who supervise practice will go to watch, they will go to the school and watch one class, and that's the evaluation, and that's the extent of it. Whereas if we could use this resource of videotaping, students could be much more better supervised and more reflexive about their own practice and others' practices. More experience with teaching, so not just teaching one class at the end of the semester, at the end of the internship, but teaching more than one, and I'm sure the collaborating teacher will be happy to oblige to that. And as postgraduate work, I mean, recently the new Minister of Education said, oh, we should have residency for teachers, and I thought that was brilliant, and I wish, it could happen. I don't know what's involved in that kind of change in public, in policy, but a residency would account for the fact that now it's a choice. So you want to be a teacher, so now you're going to really, get ready, just like doctors. So you get a basic training at an undergraduate level, and then you go for postgraduate, more intense preparation to act in your profession. That's my contribution. I hope it was helpful, and thank you very much. If you want to get in touch with me, it's zwe@puc-rio.pr. Okay, bye-bye.